If you're thinking about moving and you want to learn about what everyday life is going to be like in your new town, this is the place for you. On Open House, we sit down with local, top producing real estate agents to help you find the best places to live in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So if you don't want buyer's remorse and you want to find your dream town, we are here for you. So go ahead and book a free call with us and we'll help guide you to the area that is right for you. Now, let's jump in and learn about your new home.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Living in DC. My name is Zach, and today we have Peter Fortner with us, and we're going to be talking about Petworth, which is a little area in DC. So, Peter, great to have you on. How long have you been a realtor, and what do you love about living in the Petworth area?
Thank you for having me, Zach. Happy to talk about my experience here. And I was originally licensed in 2005. I've worked in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, but always been a resident of DC. I moved to the Parkview, Petworth area over 6 years ago, and it has been a fantastic experience. What drew me to the area, one was that at the time, at least, it was affordability. I was living closer to downtown, and as I looked to purchase a home, going from renting to purchasing, I wanted certain things. I wanted to have a little yard for a future dog. I wanted to have a guest room and an office as well. I wanted to be in a neighborhood where I expected to see higher than average equity growth based on the developments of that neighborhood. And I wanted off-street parking because as a realtor, you need a car. So looking for parking and having a safe place to put it was important to me. And I was able to find all of those things within my price point. And then after moving here, I started to discover a lot more exciting things about the neighborhood that I didn't know or expect. I've made lots of friends here. The multiculturalism, the diversity have all struck me as being incredible positives, and I'm really happy that I made the decision I made.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. You meet two kinds of people. They either love where they live or they hate it.
Yeah.
So that's good. Just from what I'm getting so far, it seems like the overall vibe of Petworth is just really focused on like community and being good neighbors. Can you tell me a little bit more about the overall vibe and if it's like super city or is it more suburban? What is it like out there?
You've got a little bit of both, which is kind of what I like. I like to be a city dweller for convenience, the walkability. You have that. You have Georgia Avenue is our main corridor, where you can find, your restaurants, your grocery stores, your mom and pop shops, your small businesses. But then just, to the east or to the west of Georgia Avenue, you have tree-lined streets. You have some condos, but mostly you have single family homes, row homes, and bike paths and dog parks and community gardens. So you'd really be surprised if you only go down Georgia Avenue, what you might expect when you go just a little bit into the neighborhood. So that was really a nice thing about the neighborhood. Across the street from where I live is a huge park that's owned by the government that won't be touched. So I have seen deer, I've seen foxes, I see migrating geese come through out one door, and then I go out the back door and I walk 2 blocks and I've got restaurants from Ethiopia and Thailand and the country of Georgia, and it really is a nice mix of nature and also that urban feel. So it's It's kind of the best of both worlds.
That is really unique, because what I've been finding about some of the other surrounding cities outside of DC is you either get like a very urban area like Alexandria, or you get something a lot more rural like Owings Mills in Maryland. So like it's kind of interesting. You had mentioned the park. Are you talking about Upshur Park?
Well, no, directly across the street is actually there's a golf course. There's a retirement home for veterans, and the retirement home owns a lot of land where, you know, the veterans have the opportunity to get out. And also located on that parcel is the summer home of Abraham Lincoln. So 25% of Abraham Lincoln's presidency was actually spent up here. We're on the top of the hill, so the DC summers can be brutal, and before air conditioning's even more so. So Abraham Lincoln during the summer would actually commute by horse and carriage down to the White House and then come back here. And so that is all federally owned land. It's fenced off. It's not incredibly accessible, but it definitely gives a lot more of a green feel. That's what I look at. There are more public parks as well. And then on the other side of that, we do have military cemeteries. And one purpose of Lincoln liking this home was getting away from the heat a bit, but also it's where he wrote the Emancipation Proclamation. It's also where a lot of the soldiers who had died in the war, their bodies would be brought back this way, and he could experience for himself the human toll that his presidency was taking to make sure that he was making an informed decision. So that's kind of what I look towards on one side, and then on the other side, back into the city I go.
That's really cool. I was going to ask you if there's any history specific to Petworth, and there we go. Learned something new. So
yeah,
that's really cool.
At one point it was farmland, but Georgia Avenue has existed for hundreds of years. Like in 1854, I think it was converted to a wood plank road. So what now is, 4 lanes of asphalt used to be all wood plank, and it had elevated rails on it, and a horse would draw a carriage on the rails up and down. It goes all the way out to Maryland, turns into US 29. And then eventually that was electrified with electricity, and it was a streetcar. And now it's, primarily just automobiles and buses. So it's been around for a long time, Georgia Avenue. The neighborhood itself, like many neighborhoods in DC, are developed after major wars. During war, the government tends to expand. So after World War I, this is kind of when this neighborhood started to really develop. So the early 1920s is where a lot of the houses are from, as people look for places to live after the conclusion of World War I.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, and I'm seeing Georgia Avenue runs almost perfectly north to south and kind of cuts Petworth in half. So it's kind of cool that you get the two sides there.
Yeah.
We all know there's a ton of, just speaking of economics, like I know there's a ton of government jobs in the area, and that's like a huge employer for people. So what are some other things that people do for work in DC, and are they commuting straight into the city, or is there enough to do for work in Petworth?
No, most of them do commute or work from home. There's a lot of nonprofits in DC. There are small business owners. There are some government workers. We're near a hospital. We also have artisans. We have people who are writers or artists or sell clothing, who have shops along in the neighborhood. There's obviously a handful of realtors. And DC, believe it or not, is the attorney capital of the United States. There's more attorneys in DC than there are in New York, which is astounding given the size, comparing the size of the two cities. So yeah, we do have a lot of attorneys, and I think you'd probably find a good handful of those as well in the area.
That's really cool. So a lot of law in the area.
It's needed. Yeah, it's needed
Yeah.
in DC.
I believe it. Well, that's cool. So, I mean, people are typically commuting out or working from home, but let's say you're not working and you want something to do. What are some interesting things to do specifically in Petworth?
We've got some great coffee shops, and like I mentioned before with restaurants, you know, some of them are, you know, Ethiopian or, you know, just good old fashioned mom and pop kind of stores. We don't have a Starbucks. We don't have a lot of big box stores. You know, like, you're not going to find Banana Republic or Baby Gap, but you will find an antique store. You will find a place called Salsa with Sylvia if you want to take salsa dances. We have yoga and CrossFit. We have a really great hardware store that has plants if you'd like to do gardening. There's definitely places to walk. There's Wangari Gardens, which has it has garden plots, but it also has areas for dogs to run. We have, you know, on Upshur Street, you'll find a concentration of businesses and restaurants. So there is some good eating. We've got a barbecue place. We've got a really excellent fried chicken place. We've got an amazing pizza place called Sonny's down in Parkview, where from the street, it just looks like a normal glass and brick storefront, but behind it is kind of where the magic is. In the back, there's a big courtyard. And there's a lot of restaurants along Georgia Avenue that have that in the back with outdoor seating, which is really pleasant. We have a wine bar that has a gravel back courtyard where you can bring your dogs, and they've got trees planted back there, and you can have charcuterie with your glass of wine. We have two pretty large beer halls, if you will. One's called Midlands and another one's called Hook Hall. They're kind of catty corner from each other. Hook Hall, you can rent a cabana outside. You can play skee ball inside. They've got, you know, weekend farmers markets, weekend drag shows. And so if you want any of, I don't know, 40 plus beers on tap, you know, we've got more than one location where you can do that. So it has family friendly fun, and then it also has adult fun that can go a little bit later into the night. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's all in Petworth.
Yeah. Parkview and Petworth were neighborhoods side by side.
Sure. 5 minutes down the road and half of that stuff is there. That's really cool. I know when a lot of people move somewhere, they're just thinking about like, what am I going to do with my free time? And that influences a lot of their decisions. So there's a lot more going on there than actually I expected.
Yeah.
It's cool. What about some younger families that have kids in school? What schools do you guys have available? Are they just public? Do you have private charter schools? What's that like?
We do have public schools. We have a bilingual school, elementary, middle, and up to high school. Roosevelt has a indoor swimming pool, and they've got a really nice football field. And a lot of those amenities are available to families who don't have kids that are yet that age in school. So yeah, the schools that are around here are also major parts of our community, playgrounds and that type of thing, as well as the community centers, the rec center, and there's a splash park for kids. And then there's also a public library right at the corner of Georgia and Kansas that is a vital learning resource for the neighborhood.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really cool. So to me, it's seeming like this is the best place for active adults and, you know, families with kids in school. Is there a big retirement demographic in Petworth, or do you not see that as much?
We do have senior citizens. I mean, I don't think we have a senior community center, and I don't know how many people necessarily move to this area to retire. I would see more of people who have been here for 40, 50, 60 years who like the neighborhood and wanted to stay in their home. And so, yes, we do have people at retirement age, and they're a really important part of our history and a reminder of how the neighborhood has changed, and also a reminder of how we need to take care of those people who want to continue to live in their homes as long as possible. Yeah.
That's cool. I know that earlier you had mentioned you wanted the things that you wanted in a home, and having a yard was one of those.
Yeah.
It does seem like the homes are packed together a little bit closer than you'd find in like a more suburban area. So what are you looking to get when you are wanting a house in Petworth? How much are you going to spend on like a 3-bed, 2-bath? What size lot does that come with?
It depends on the condition of the home. When I purchased it was like I mentioned 6 years ago. The pricing has gone up considerably. So yeah, now if you want a 3-bedroom house, it's probably going to start around 800,000, and can go, well over $1 million. The unit that I live in is part of it was a row home, and it was divided into two level condominiums. So I have the first 2 floors, which has the backyard, about 1,800 square feet. I have 2 outdoor spaces, and for people who might not be familiar with the area, yes, it's tight packed, and yes, my yard is small. I have a small dog, and he doesn't require a lot of exercise, so it gives me the room to plant and to let the dog out in an area where he doesn't need to be leashed when he needs to do his thing. But yes, so when we talk about yards in this area, it's in comparison to maybe where I moved from, which was down about 2 miles closer to downtown, where you're in a high rise and it's not a 2-unit condominium or a single row home. It's 150 units, and the only way to access the outdoors is through an elevator, or going down flights and flights of stairs to end up on a concrete sidewalk with an asphalt street. Compared to that, yeah, this is a lot greener and gives you a lot more space.
Yeah, it seems like Petworth is a good place to be if you're wanting to be like in the city and have that accessibility. And you mentioned walkability, which is another trend that I'm seeing in the area, but you don't want to be in an apartment stacked on top of a bunch of other apartments. You do want, 1 or 2 level condo or even a single family home.
Yep.
So, and you want that outdoor nature aspect, which I value a lot. So, I think, if I wanted to move right to DC, Petworth would probably be where I would go personally. So
I think you'd love it.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think we covered a lot of really good stuff. If someone was debating on moving to DC and Petworth in particular, but they just needed a little bit of a nudge, what would you say to them?
I would tell them to look at how the neighborhood has changed over the past 10 years. And to think about not only your livability, which I think we've already covered, but also your financial investment in a neighborhood that continues to be not just a convenience for the people who live here, but starting to become more of a destination for people who don't live here. Vacancies are, kind of increased during COVID, but post-COVID, I anticipate that we'll see a lot more new businesses. And the new businesses that we're mostly drawing in are, like I mentioned before, not your big box mini Targets or Walmarts, but owners who live in DC or very close to DC and are opening up something that's truly unique. And so walking the corridor, enjoying our establishments. We have an annual Celebrate Petworth, which is a fantastic event where we have thousands of people come. We have 66 vendors this past year.
Wow.
And it's restaurants, it's artisans, people making their own jewelry. And you just see the incredible diversity of the people and the respect and how much fun we have, and live music of all different types. There was a dog costume show. There was a kids area. And so those types of little community things, I think would really attract you to want to live here. Yeah.
Got me sold. Well, Peter, thanks for coming on today. It was really great. I love learning about all these different areas, and Petworth does sound like a really cool place to be. For our viewers, if you guys are wanting to move to DC and you're thinking about Petworth in particular, our contact is in the description. Book a call with us. It's totally free. We'd love to talk with you and help you make a smooth transition to the DC area. And of course, we'd love to pair you up with an incredible agent like Peter. Peter, thanks for coming on, and we should do it again sometime.
Thank you so much, Zach. Appreciate it.